Welcome, everyone. This is David DeSmith, Marketing Director at Southworth, and thank you for joining us for a very special evening with Thomas Aiken. Thomas, as most of you probably know, or I hope you know, has been a resident at the Abaco Club for 10 years. He's had a long and storied career as a touring professional, 19 years on various tours, PGA Tour, European Tour, Sun Tour, an incredible amateur career. Three-time European Tour winner, 11 times he's won tournaments worldwide, and twice has been top 7 in the Open Championship. And Thomas has very graciously agreed to speak with our group tonight. Some questions have been sent in, and he has those in hand. If you have additional questions, you'll see over on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a place where you can type in a question for Thomas. And we'll, anyone who's asked a question or who writes one in, we will try to make your microphone go live for the time when he's dealing with that question to enable a bit of a conversation. But with that said, Thomas, thank you so much, and take it away.
Thank you, David. Sorry, timing couldn't be worse. I see my PC battery's running low, so I might have to run off the screen to plug it in. But welcome to everyone that's online. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to Southworth for the idea of doing this webinar. I know you guys are all stuck at home, and hopefully in other states and in other parts of the world are able to get out a little bit. But if you're not, welcome. Here's an opportunity to get back to a little bit of normality and hopefully learn some golfing tips and hear some stories. But as you know, I'm a member at the Abaco Club, for those of you who I don't know on the line. And for those of you that haven't been there, it's a beautiful resort opened by the Southworth Group in Abaco, Bahamas. And it's been myself and my family's home for the last 10 years. And we've absolutely loved it. It's a place of absolute tranquility and beauty, and even after the effects of Hurricane Dorian last year, it somehow miraculously survived and is still standing and is more beautiful than ever. So if you haven't been, make sure you go. I know there's a lot of people on the line from sister communities, so if you haven't been, do yourself a favor and book a trip. But yeah, here we are in today's world with a pandemic that I didn't really think we would see in our lifetime. I hoped we wouldn't, at least. I hoped our kids wouldn't either. But here we are, and those are the times of today. So hopefully this can lighten up the mood and give you some insight into what professional golf is like. If you can bear with me for 1 second, I'm just going to plug my laptop in, because otherwise it's going to go dead, and I'll get to a long list of questions that all of you have submitted. You might lose light a little bit. Sorry about that. So we had a bunch of questions from various communities. The first community I'm going to touch base on is the Creighton Farms community. And the first person that submitted their question was John Jager. John, if you're listening, you can turn your microphone on and talk directly with me while I'm answering your question. But John is actually someone who I know quite well, and hopefully you're there so I can speak to you. John, are you there? All right. If he's not a problem. But if you are, you can join in by clicking on your microphone, and I think the admin team will allow you to join. But John's question was, besides purses, what are the major differences between playing on the PGA Tour and the European Tour? Well, that's quite an interesting question. Obviously, the purse size is quite different in most of the events, but I think the biggest difference mostly is we play in so many various countries on so many different golf courses with so many different surfaces. So we have a massive variety of courses, from links to parkland courses to coastal courses to courses in Asia with different grasses that are more grainy, to bent grass fairways in Europe. So we have a massive variety from a course standpoint. Also, with the different countries that we visit, we have a huge variety of culture. And also with all the players, we all come from different nationalities. So the culture on tour is very different to the US Tour. I think obviously with predominantly most of the players from America and the States, they generally get along really well and can all communicate on one level. Whereas in Europe, we have so many different cultures that you have eclectic groups going in different directions. But it is a lot of fun, and guys will hang out because we all stay in the same hotel every week, as opposed to Europe, where we stay in, as opposed to the States, where they stay in different hotels. There's not one official hotel where everyone stays, like European Tour is. So those are mainly the biggest differences between the PGA Tour and the European Tour. John also has another question, which is, in the weeks preceding your tour wins, or when you ended up near the top, did you change anything in your practice routine? The answer is no. I have a pretty stringent practice routine where I repeat the same thing over and over. I have various drills that I do when I'm not playing tournaments. And when I'm at tournaments, I'm really working on all aspects of the game during the days leading up to it. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll be doing a little bit of short game, a little bit of bunker play, a little bit of putting, obviously long game. Most of it on a tournament week is really warming up to start on Thursday. But if the swing is not feeling quite there, I'll also incorporate some drills at the beginning of the week to fine-tune things. But really, it's about just repeating the routine of what you know well. We know our swings pretty well, so we know what drills work for us, and just literally going through those motions and making sure that you can repeat those every single day when you play. Repetition is what we strive for in the professional game. And John actually had a third question, and it's a pretty good question, John, is how has having children changed your golf life? Travel must be difficult, and it isn't like Katie can just jump on a plane and caddy for you. Yeah, obviously kids have changed. I think kids change everyone's life in some ways, in most ways for the better. But in golf with the travel, it's tough. I think it's tough being away from home, obviously tough being away from your kids and your family. We generally, especially playing in Europe, I'm away sometimes as much as 8 weeks. So when you have kids that are under 3 and in under 1 in my son's case, you notice massive differences when they come back and feel like you've missed out on a lot. So from that aspect, it's hard, but it also motivates you to perform better. I then have a question from Mr. Koblis. What is your setup? What is your setup for a fairway bunker shot? That's quite an interesting question. And excuse me, I've got to turn that on. While that boots. So basically, for a fairway bunker shot, setup-wise, I don't try and change anything. It's going to be the same setup that I have in my normal golf swing. The only thing that I'm really going to emphasize on is trying to keep my height. So in other words, I don't want my head to dip when I'm going to, obviously because the ball's in sand, so you really hit it deep. want to hit the sand first. So all I try and emphasize is I take my normal setup, I go with a set line here. And if anything, I'm going to try and play more of a cut out of the bunker because you're going to get a little bit steeper on the ball and not get as much sand before if you want to be getting into the sand after the ball. So I have my normal setup here, and I just keep my height and swing through. So keeping your height is the most important part of a fairway bunker shot. And I'm going to lower that pin here. Excuse the computer from going dead. I've got so many computers running. I didn't have a charger for everything. So that basically hopefully answers your question, Mr. Koblos. The next question is from Wendy Hughes. Wendy, I don't know if you're online or if we can hook up your microphone. Okay, not a problem if we can't. I'm going to go through these questions, and at the end we're going to open up everyone to be able to speak to me at the end. So Wendy says, as a new golfer, she's only been playing for 3 years. She has a tendency to sway and take her eyes off the ball when trying to chip. Do I have any tips to stop this behavior? Well, the answer is yes. There's some good tips I can give you, Wendy. I'm going to set up this where we in a decent chipping area, and I'll show you a couple of shots. All right. So chipping is supposed to be simple. Although it's probably the hardest part of the game for amateurs because they feel like they have to do too much. The biggest thing with chipping is we want to use our upper body too. We don't want to break our wrists and try and hit the ball or get fancy. Chipping is supposed to be simple. So the best drill I can give you is stand your feet very close together. Wendy, this is going to stop you from swaying because if you feel like you're going to move, you're actually going to feel like you're going to fall over. So it's going to change you nicely. We're going to put a little bit of weight on our left foot, a little more than our right, probably in a 60-40 zone. And you can put more if you want. All it's going to mean is you're going to get steeper on the ball. But what I like to try and do is set up with my forearm and my shaft in one position. And from that position, all I'm going to do is turn my upper body backwards and through. So to there and to there. I can give you a good drill to do, and that is, all you have to do is put a T in that hole on the top of your club. And then we can get that T to point to your hip, your left hip, your right-hander, and your right hip, your left-hander. And I want to keep that T pointing to my hip for my whole swing. You'll notice if we get risky, the T breaks and points down there, and vice versa, points this way on the way through. So I really want to focus on just moving your upper body and always face the target with your chest when you finish. Another good drill, which is a simple one, is holding it with one hand and then holding your bicep with your other hand. And this will make sure that you only move your chest. Because if you break it, then you won't have the power in your hand to actually hit it properly. So I'll give you an example here. And it's as simple as that. All we want to do is turn our chest back and turn it through. Right, so that's it for the Creighton Farm members. Next question is from Ravi Singer, who is from the Abaco Club. We're going to get on to the Abaco Club members. Ravi, how are you doing? I hope you're there. If you are, please try and turn on your microphone. If not, no problem. But Ravi asks, any tips on getting backspin on approach shots for the amateur golfer? I get asked this one a lot.
Hey Thomas, I'm finally unmuted.
Are you there? How's it, Ravi?
Yeah, how are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, very well, thanks. I'm glad I got through to one of you. It was like a ghost talk for me.
Yeah, no, we're here. It took a while.
No, great, man. So Ravi, any tips on getting backspin? Well, you're gonna laugh. So the biggest thing about getting backspin is actually, first thing I'm going to suggest is the golf ball that you use, because if you're not using a premium golf ball, it's going to be very hard to spin the ball. I mean, even us as professionals, if we use, say, like a driving range ball, not the driving range balls that are at the Abaco Club, because those are actually pretty good, but like a normal public driving range ball, we can't spin it at all. So first thing I'd suggest is make sure that you have a premium golf ball. And then the second thing is spin is generated from speed. So for example, like I was demonstrating when I was chipping, and I'm sorry I have to hold my phone, it's just where the microphone is. If I don't have speed, I'm not going to generate spin. So on shorter chips, you'll notice it's very hard to generate spin, because a shot right here, it spins a little bit, but you're not going to get backspin because there's no speed. But I don't want you to emphasize that you have to try and hit speed, because it's really more to do with the golf ball that you use and the way that you strike the ball. You need to strike the ball more on a descending blow, as opposed to trying to lift the ball. I think too many amateurs think that they need to hit it too cleanly and lift the ball, as opposed to really striking down on the ball and into the ground on the way through. If you get that strike down and into the ground and collect the ball first, you're going to generate spin naturally. You don't have to try and do anything else.
So Thomas, what I've been told in the past is, I think similar to what you're saying, which is hit the ball first and then take a divot after the ball, right?
Yes.
But in some of the pictures I've seen, the divot is actually, my view of that is, you hit the ball and the divot starts from where the ball was, stationary. And so You've got a couple of it. But in some of the pictures I've seen, the divot actually begins 2 or 3 inches beyond where the ball was, which kind of seems like an impossible feat.
It's not. It shouldn't be 2 or 3 inches beyond the ball. That's the first thing I'm going to say. If it is, it means that you're actually late in hitting the ball. So what I mean by late is, if this is on time, my shaft angle, okay, this angle would be late. So if you're late, you generally get very steep on the ball, and the steeper you are on the ball, the later your divot's going to be, because my body's turning and my divot's, I'm going to hit the ball here, and my divot's only going to start 2 or 3 inches after the ball. If I'm on time, which is back to a dead straight shaft, you're going to hit the ball first, and the divot's going to be at the ball or about half an inch after the ball. What you don't want is to tilt your body backwards to try and lift the ball when you hit, because if you do that, you're going to hit before the ball, and if you hit before the ball, you're not going to get any spin at all, because you're going to be leaning back. So I really want you to keep your chest over the ball for as long as possible, which will help you hit down on the ball more. But you shouldn't have a divot 2 to 3 inches past the ball. It should be literally on the ball or half an inch past the ball.
Good. Thank you.
No problem. Hope you're well, and look forward to chatting at the end.
Yep.
The next question is from Brian Schaefer. So Brian says, what drills do you use to prevent your swing from being steep? Now, that's exactly what I was saying. It shouldn't be past the ball. It should be on the ball. So what drills can you do to prevent your swing from being steep on the full swing as well on the chip shot? So it's a great question. So Brian, are you there?
I sure am. How are you?
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you.
So the biggest thing, in order to create width, basically, I'm gonna talk about width because width equals being shallow. Being narrow means being steep. So I'm going to start with the chipping because it's the simplest to show you. So if I'm chipping and I turn my chest, look how much width I've created. I can't have any more width than that because I've just turned my chest and the club is as far as it can be from where my hands are as it is. If I wrist cock, I've now narrowed my width. So literally, if you just turn and turn, you're going to create more width in your chipping. Therefore, you're going to be slightly shallower, although I don't want you too shallow because otherwise you're going to hit before the ball. So that's why we keep a little bit of weight on our left side to create that little bit of hinge, which we don't want to try and do. We try and do no hinge, and it just happens naturally. So I hope that helps with the chipping. It's literally just turning your shoulders back and through that creates the width in the chipping. If you're doing a flop shot, it's the same thing. You open the club face up, but now because you can hit it harder, you're actually extending a little bit further, creating the same width. I haven't hinged my wrists. I'm not trying to hinge them. If I do hinge them up here, it's fine. I've just got to know that on the way down, I've got to unhinge them. And then you create your width. In the full swing, it's the same exercise. So what I like to do is have a drill where I get to the top of my swing and I actually pulse like this and create some width. Now it's just an exercise. I'm not going to try and hit the ball like that. I'm just going to feel that I'm unhinging. Ernie Els actually does it the best. If you watch a slow-mo video, is he gets to the top of his swing and you actually see his wrist unhinged on the way down, creating that width. And the wider you are, the further you're actually going to hit it, and the higher you're going to hit it, because you're generating so much more speed because the centrifugal force of the club is further away from your hands. It's at maximum length. Therefore, creating width equals speed. I hope that helps, Brian. I don't know if there's anything else that you can think of.
No, that sounds good, Thomas. Thank you for the content, and then we'll relay that on to other members and see what we can do to get a little more width in our swing.
I hope you're doing well over there. I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, we can't wait to see you back. We're ready for some guests to start showing up over here at the Abaco Club.
I'm sure you are. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for your question, and we'll talk afterwards.
Cheers.
Cheers. Next question is from David McGuinness. David, if you're there, turn your mic on. I'd love to chat to you. Which shot do you feel is the most difficult to play consistently? And what is the best training aid that you've ever used? Dave, I don't know if you're there. I don't know if you've got your mic on. If you do, join in. If not, I'll touch base on your question. But to answer that question, I think the Abaco Club is actually a great analogy for the shot, because the toughest shot for any professional golfer is about a 15 to 30 yard pitch shot out of tight lie or a sandy lie. So in other words, when I say tight lie with no grass on it, possibly a little sand, maybe even in the like the desert area, the club, or the natural area where the ball really kind of sits down and it feels like you can't get underneath the ball. I think that's the hardest shot to play consistently. And the reason why is because we all get a little bit anxious. When we don't think we can do something, we tend to flinch at the bottom, and we don't trust what we're doing. But what you really need to do is it's more of an emphasis on what we've actually just spoken about on the chip shot. It's really concentrate on turning and rotating. And in the sand, if you have a really bad lie, I would always always suggest try and play bunker shot, because the chances of you catching it absolutely perfect are like 50-50. So if you play a bunker shot in there, and I'm going to show you the difference between a bunker shot and a chip shot. Chip shot is connected, so rotating your upper body. A bunker shot is the complete opposite. It's trying to release the club head, so you want to hinge as much as possible on the way back, and then unhinge by releasing the club head past your hands, and that creates speed. So you create the most amount of speed that way, and we can hit behind the ball like that and really accelerate through. You can use anything from a lob wedge, a sand wedge, pitching wedge, a 9-9, depending on how far you have from the hole to play that shot. And it's a great way to kind of cheat the tight or the sandy lie where you don't feel comfortable about striking it perfectly. The next question from David was, what's my favorite cleaning aid? So I've got a couple. So the biggest one is there's an aid called the swim guide. It's a yellow thing that hooks on to your club and attaches to your wrist. And what it really does is just teach you how to get on plane. So it teaches you how to turn and then hinge so that it connects to your wrist, unhinge, and then hinge so it connects back to your wrist on the way through. That's a really good training aid. And the other one, Scotty Cameron does putting rails. They're dead straight putting rails, and you can put them down. And what I like about that one is it's completely free. So you literally set the parameters as to how narrow or how wide you want them to be with your putter, and you putt through them. And what it does is that the rails are 3 balls in length, and it just keeps your face square through those 3 balls in length, so that if your timing is slightly out, you know that the face is still square, so it's not going to make much of a difference. So if you train like that, you can really start to improve. But I'm going to touch on that a little bit later in the show, so we'll get to that. But Dave, thank you so much for your questions. I'm sorry that you weren't, or I know you might be online, but I'm sorry you couldn't get your microphone to chat. But hopefully we can do that a bit later. So that's all the Abaco Club members that have submitted questions. The next lot of group is the Willow Bend members. And the first person is Frank Kanata. And Frank's actually submitted 3 questions. And the first question is, have you sat with Ernie Els and enjoyed some of his wines with him as of late?
That's
Frank,
right, Thomas. I would love to hear that story.
Well, there's multiple stories, and some of them are very long, but Frank, to tell you, Ernie's a really good friend of mine, and he loves to drink. Whether it's wine or not, that's irrelevant, but we have had a few glasses of wine together. My most memorable time with him having a glass of wine was actually in 2012. We played together at the Open Championship at Lytham St Anne's, and on the Saturday we were paired together, and he actually won the tournament. I finished 6th, and he won the tournament, and he wasn't expecting it at all. I mean, we played practice rounds together on the Monday and Tuesday, and he was hitting it awful. And he actually walked off the golf course in the practice round on Tuesday. And he came out on Thursday, and he obviously just came out with a different attitude. And with all his experience, he found something. And it was fun to play with him on Saturday, being a good friend of mine. Obviously, I would have loved to have beaten him. I actually beat him on Saturday. He just played a little bit better than I did on the Sunday. But it was an awesome experience having to have not a glass but a few bottles of wine with him after he'd won that Sunday night. And as you can imagine, I'm sure you've all heard a few stories of Ernie Els, but we won't divulge into that just as of yet.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Frank, are you actually there? Sorry, I didn't.
Yes, I'm here, Thomas. Can you hear me?
Oh, perfect. So your next question was, what techniques have you used to overcome a slump during the season or a mini slump during a round? That's a good question. I mean, we don't per se actually use any any techniques. It's a slump is more of it's a mental hurdle. We practice so much, we repeat what we do so often that it's more fine tuning. So that's why I reiterate the fact of just keeping on your process. So do your drills, do what you do every single day, because you know life is going to be a sine graph. It's never going to be a vertical plateau. I mean, sorry, a vertical rise. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. You need to realize that. I think Jack Nicklaus was the one who said you need to learn to lose before you can learn to win. And that's a great analogy when it comes to people that go into slumps or mini slumps. It's a due course. I mean, even the best players in the world, if you look at Tiger Woods, I mean, he's been from not being able to hit a chip shot, and we've all experienced things like that in our careers if you've played long enough. But you just need to know that you need to stick with your process and believe in yourself, and know that time is going to change, and sometimes it changes when you least expect it.
Well, the thing about that, Thomas, that I appreciate for you being a professional is, you know, I grew up as an insecure Italian, so I harbor things. So I can't let a bad hole go away. It takes me a while, where I can see a pro make a triple bogey and then all of a sudden go on a run of birdies. And it's amazing how you can just turn it off from the green to the tee and turn it back on again. And that's kind of what I'm referring to. And I know it's probably more ingrained as well as learned. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, to give you an idea, some of my best rounds in my career have started with a bogey or a double bogey. And the reason is we like to try and play our way into our round. So in other words, the first 4 holes, we really just trying to build some confidence, hit some good shots, put ourselves in a position to make a birdie, and if not, make an easy par. And really slowly start winding your way up from, say, starting at like 70% to getting to 100% or at least 90% by, say, hole 12, 13. Now, when you say you get frustrated, yeah, I think the difference between a professional and an amateur when they get frustrated is it's how you use that frustration. Because frustration can be catastrophic, and it can also be really good, because if you get frustrated and you use it to motivate yourself, it's amazing what you can do. And that's why you often see someone who makes a triple come back and make 3 or 4 birdies like that straight in a row. I think the best person at it is Tiger Woods. You know, it's kind of ingrained in him. He gets pissed off, and you've seen it in the past, especially when he was younger. I mean, he used to throw his club. Everyone has some way to release that frustration, and once it's released, they build on it for the next few holes. And then you often see guys who are not quite at the top of their game and are going through a mini slump or a slump, and when something bad happens to them, you can see when the opposite happens, when they get frustrated and then they get down, and when they get down, then it's just a catastrophic tumble, and there's no coming back from it. Fortunately enough, most pros that are on tour, it doesn't happen to them too often. I mean, it will happen to you in your career. It's inevitable, and it will happen to you in all walks of life in your career. But it's always important to realize that when things are not going your way, if you stick to your process, you believe in yourself, and you take that frustration, you turn it into anger, but good anger, to motivate yourself to achieve something, it's amazing what you can do. So thank you for that question, Frank. You've actually got one more question here, which is, what are your best keys to maintaining a solid and reproducible tempo in your swing? That's a great question, because in my opinion, I think in the modern game, everyone's so focused on speed and distance that they forget about tempo. And inevitably, golf has always been a game about tempo. If you look back to the days of Ben Hogan, Gene Sarazen, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Ernie Els, guys that rely on their tempo. Now, there's a few drills that I do to keep my tempo consistent, and tempo is so important because tempo actually generates more speed. If you can maintain your tempo, you maintain a better technique, and the better technique, meaning being a little wider on the way down, will increase your speed. When you try and snatch at the club and hit it hard, look what happens. You get narrower. And when you get narrower, you lose all that power. So it may feel like you're hitting it harder, but your ball speed doesn't change. So when I'm warming up on a driving range, I like to peg the ball up in the beginning of my practice session and take like a 7 on the 6 iron. And what I work on is I try and clip the ball off the peg and literally hit it like 80 yards first, and then try and work my way up to hitting it full distance. So I'll hit like 3 shots, 80 yards, 3 shots, 100 yards, 3 shots, 120 yards, and so forth, until I get to my full distance, which is 170. So I'll set this up here on the monitor for you guys. So I'll demonstrate. I'm just going to literally clip this off a peg. And as you can see, I took a full swing, but at a really slow tempo. And that ball's only gone 106 cards. So if you can hit it straight, you're actually working 2 things. You're working tempo, but you're also working timing. Because it's really hard to actually square up the club face when you're not going 100% speed, but you're going at 100% depth. So
Right.
I do that, and then the next shot I'll try and hit like 120. And so forth, until I get to my full speed, and that really just reiterates how important tempo is, and it's a great drill to do. You can actually do it with a driver as well, and it helps your driving because it tells you whether you are not releasing the club enough, so in other words, if you're late because the ball goes right, or if you're flipping the club because it'll go left. So it does 2 things. It works on your tempo, but it also works on your release to make sure that you have a correct release.
Now, Thomas, when you do these drills, will you do all of these drills off of a tee or a peg, or will you do them off turf?
I will always do drills off a peg. And the reason why is we are not looking for a result in a drill. We're trying to make sure that we do the drill correctly, and we don't want to emphasize the strike of the ball. If off a peg, it's going to be easier for you to do the drill, but you're going to get enough feedback from the drill itself to see whether you're doing it correctly. We don't need to do it on the turf to add something a little bit more difficult. So we want it to be as simple as possible because it's a drill. We're not looking for a result.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for all your insight, and good luck once everything gets turned back on again. I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks for your questions.
Good luck.
Thank you. So the next question is from Alan Oskov. Alan, are you there? Okay, if not, not a problem. Alan's question is, what tips do you have for an amateur golfer and an amateur golfer who's looking to gain more power? So we've touched on this basically already, Alan. I always reiterate tempo. Without tempo, you're not going to generate the right sequencing in your body. So when you try and hit the ball hard, your sequence of your swing, so in other words, your legs, your hips, your shoulders, and your arms are not going to be working in unison together. If you do this drill that I've just done now with the tempo, your sequencing is going to get better. And once your sequencing gets better, your strike gets better. And if you've got a better strike, you're going to get more speed. So those are things that you can think of to do at home. You can do this drill at home. You don't need a ball. You just put a peg in the ground, If you in lockdown, you can just clip the peg off a tee in the garden, or if you're lucky enough to have a net, or if your driving range is open, try it. I promise you, it's going to make a big difference. So that's all the questions from the Willow Bend members. The next club is the Renaissance members, and the first question is from Roxanne Comely. Roxanne, I hope you're well. I don't know if you're there. If you are, turn on your mic and we'd love to have a chat. But Roxanne is basically saying, well, she's actually touched on a little things that I'm actually going to talk about later about the club and various other things. And she wanted to know, how do you stay focused and in the zone while playing golf during such a long competitive round? And it's a great question. I mean, we're on the golf course for 5 hours, and in most sports, like a hockey game or a basketball game, you're playing a reaction sport, and it's over within an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours. Whereas golf is long. We play 5 hours, and people generally think that you've got to concentrate for so long, but the actual key to it is to learn to turn on and turn off. Now, some people can do it, some people can't. The ones that can do it, it's a lot easier for them because they generally have a less stressful week, because they learn to completely turn off and then can turn on when they're hitting the ball or just before they start their pre-shot routine. The others basically focus for that extended period of 5 hours, and it is mentally draining, especially the weeks of majors where you're putting hours and hours of preparation into learning the golf course, learning all the intricacies of it, learning where and where not to go. And then during the practice days, you're putting a lot more effort than you normally do, because obviously there's only 4 of them in a year, and they mean a lot more. So people tend to put a lot more effort into those events, and they are exhausting. And that's generally why you see guys taking a week off either before or after the majors. But yeah, I mean, it's a great question. They always say you either got to be really smart to play golf or really dumb. I wish I was really dumb, because it would be easier to turn on and turn off. But I've managed to do it a couple of times in my life, managed to turn it off. When your whole life is relaxed and you have all your ducks in a row, it's very easy to do, because you can distance yourself and put your mind somewhere peaceful, like say being on the beach at the Abaco Club while you're walking between shots. If not, I generally use my time between shots to think about the next shot, as pull out my yardage book and look where the flag is, so that I do a lot of my work before I get to the ball, so that I have some time to relax before I hit the ball. So great question. Thank you, Roxanne. The next question is from Dirk van der Broek. Dirk, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Thomas.
How's it, Dirk? How are you doing? There's a fellow South African on the line there.
I wish.
Your name sounds very Afrikaans, but I apologize if it's not. Dirk, you've asked, how do you fix the dreaded over-the-top move? And any drills I could try. I know my swing is steep and from the outside, but I just can't seem to fix it. Well, Dirk, it's an off. I hate using the term over the top, because in a lot of people's case, they actually need to work over the top to correct faults of theirs. And golf instructors have really emphasized this over the top move being dreaded. Now, it can be dreaded, don't get me wrong, but it's not dreaded. From a professional standpoint, a lot of guys actually practice in their practice swing trying to move over the top, because they're actually too much from the inside. So in your case, if you're too much over the top, here's a simple drill. You actually don't even need a ball. You can stand at your house or on a carpet or in your garden, and you take your club to the top of your backswing. I'm actually going to turn a little bit more face onto the camera. You take it to the top of the backswing, and from that position, I want you to just drop your arms. So basically, you're going to drop your arms to your leg and actually let the club hit the ground. So it's almost like you just almost letting the club just drop vertically onto the ground. Once it's hit the ground, I then want you to turn your shoulders to pull the club through and drag it along the ground. What that does is it just changes the way club drops down. So it's going to drop down to the ground and drag it on the way through. If you practice that 20, 30 times before you hit one ball, and then hit a ball with that same feeling, that same motion, I can guarantee you're not going to be as over the top. And you must remember the golf swing, I like to think of it as a living organism. It's never quite exactly the same. I mean, for us who practice thousands of hours, it changes this much from week to week. So for you guys that don't put in that practice, it can change quite a lot all the time. And what we want to try and do is slowly change your swing to move a little bit more to the inside. So this is a great drill. I used to do it actually when I was a kid. You take it to the top, drop your hands down, drag the club along the ground through. And that'll help you work a little bit more from the inside.
That's a wonderful tip, Thomas. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure, and look forward to hopefully meeting you at the Abaco Club one day. Thank you, Dirk. So we're almost done with all the questions. The last group are the Southwest corporate group, and David DeSmith has a question, and it is, when your putter goes cold on you, what are the things you do to get it back on track? David, I know you're there.
Yes.
So
I really need the answer to this question.
So I'm going to give you a putting drill, because during a round, getting your putter back on track is all mental. It's literally, it's not thinking about the stroke. When you're on the golf course, I don't want anyone to think about their putting stroke. It's the last thing you should be thinking of. The only thing that you're thinking of is getting the ball into the hole. I mean, you often see kids on a putting green, and you're amazed by how well kids putt. I mean, they'll be 40, 30 feet from the hole and start draining putts, because all that they focused on is getting the ball into the hole. They're not worried about any technical aspects or anything like that. They're playing the game. And we always forget that this is a game that we play. It's not supposed to be that technical. Everyone tries to make it way too technical. So I'm going to give you a simple drill that you should do before you play every single round. And 95% of putting is pace. If you don't have the right pace, you're never going to find the right line. And if you don't find the right line, the ball's not going to go in the hole. So I don't know if you can see my makeshift hole here in my pad, but what I try and do is take 3 balls, and I'll start a foot from the hole. And I'll literally, all I'm trying to do is just get the balls to drop in the hole. I hit 3 from a foot. And it might sound tedious. Why are you hitting from a foot? It has its purpose. And you go back 6 inches, and you hit the next 3 from 6 inches. And you just try and get them to just drop in the hole. And you go back another 6 inches, and you keep going back 6 inches until you get to 25 feet. And what that does is it just gets you used to the pace on the greens. Once you've found the pace, I promise you, instinctively, you're going to start finding the correct line, because you're going to see how much the ball is breaking consistently because you have the right pace. And even if you don't get the right line, you're going to be so close to the hole, you're going to tap it in.
Righto. Makes perfect sense. Thanks, Thomas.
Absolute pleasure. The next question from Southwest Corporate, which is also the last question, is from Kyle Badenbach. Kyle, are you there?
He's not able to get his mic working, but he's just texted me and said he's listening.
Okay, no problem. So he says, who is the most intimidating player you've ever been paired with, and what is the most memorable pairing? And also, when you play Darren at the Abaco Club, who wins more? So Carl, that's quite interesting. The most intimidating player I think that every professional golfer in the current era has played with is Tiger Woods. He has this aura, this self-created aura around him when he pitches up, especially back in the mid to early 2000s when he really was winning pretty much consistently 4 times a season. He had that aura around him, and the crowd is so much with him when you're playing with him that you kind of feel a little bit out of place. And until you've done it a couple of times, I wish I had the experience to have done it more. But I certainly felt the crowd being with him the whole way, and it has an effect on you. Either you go with it and you play great golf, or you don't and you're nervous and you struggle. Fortunately enough, when I actually played with him, I was really young, so I didn't really feel as nervous as I probably would have a couple of years after that. Ignorance is always bliss. But he's definitely the most intimidating player that I've played with. The most memorable pairing, well, I have 2. One was in 2009 at the Open at Turnberry. Again, I was actually in contention for that one, but I played with Tom Watson, and it's the year that Tom Watson almost won the Open that year. And we actually played a practice round as well. Played with him and VJ in the practice round, but to actually get to play with someone like Watson, who has won so many majors, it was a surreal feeling, and he's such a nice guy that he shared a lot with me, and we really had a good time on the golf course. I felt like I learned a lot. I felt like I was playing also in an era where I used to watch all the time, which was really unique, and I had a lot of fun playing with him, especially with the fact that not only had he achieved what he achieved, he actually was still playing really good golf at the time, and you could learn from him. For him to almost win that Open was phenomenal. I mean, because his putting inside 10 feet, as you know, is absolutely horrendous because he thinks about it too much, but it just gives you an idea of how good the rest of his game is and how well he thinks his way around a golf course. Because at an Open, that's really what it's about. I mean, you need to think your way around those golf courses and plot, and he's one of those players that does it so well. So that was probably my most memorable pairing. Barring that would probably be with Ernie at the Open in 2012 when he won, just because he's a good friend of mine, and it was so nice to see him win. Although we didn't play on the Saturday, on the Sunday, we played on the Saturday. Those are probably my 2 most memorable pairings. And the last one, when I play with Darren, well, as you all know at the Abaco Club, Darren fishes more than he plays golf. So it's hard to get around with him. I play a lot more with his sons than I do with him. So when he does play, it's a lot of fun, and we have a good competitive round. I have no idea who wins more, but we have a nice, relaxing round. And I think his son Tyrone is more competitive than both of us at the moment, because he's on his way up and is playing college golf and really puts a lot of hard work in at the moment. But yeah, we have a lot of fun. But Darren definitely fishes there a lot more than he plays golf, and I can't blame him. I wish I had the opportunity to fish more with Darren rather than play golf with him. So that's basically it for the question part. We touched on a lot of drills, so unless somebody comes up with more that they want to know in the Q&A, I'm not going to get too much involved in any more golf drills. We basically just going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to open the floor at the end. But the biggest thing is I want to talk to you guys about what's happening now. I mean, it's very relevant, and you know, this coronavirus is all. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm in a different world. Being confined to your house, I'm lucky I've got this setup, which I set up during the actual pandemic because I was worried I wasn't going to get the balls. But you know, there's people that are stuck out there in apartments that can't leave. I spoke to a friend of mine in Italy the other day. He's been in an apartment for 2 months and is only been able to leave to go grocery shopping. And the effects that has on you mentally it's a large impact in your life. And I think this is impacting everybody. And I just want to point some pointers out that help me get through this time. I've had a tough time the last year as well. My wife had some health issues, and mentally that's been difficult for me. And I've had to really look hard into my inner self and figure out ways to overcome what your brain is telling you and what your mind's telling you. Because when you have so much time to think, all these crazy things circulate in your mind. So there's some points that I want to touch on that you guys can practice at home if you guys are struggling. And the one is, make sure that you have a routine. If you don't have a routine, your life seems chaos. So try and build a routine. Like if you're not working, if you are, great, then you're in a routine. If you're fortunate enough to be working at the moment, fantastic. Some of us aren't. If you're not, make sure that you have a routine. Do the same things every day. Wake up, as simple as making the bed. Just make sure you have a routine. The other thing is, give yourself things to do. If you have projects that you've always wanted to do around the house, now's a great time to do it. Busy yourself by giving yourself projects to do. I know I've done a lot. One of them was building this. I've done a lot of work in the garden. I've obviously got 2 kids under 3, so I'm pretty busy as it is with them. But when I do have spare time, I try and busy myself. Even mowing the lawn, I'll go and mow the lawn just to take my mind off things. The other thing you can do is challenge yourself with something new. Try something that you don't normally do. See if you like it. Who knows? Do something that you didn't have time to do before. If you've always wanted to, I don't know, study a course or something, now's a good time to go and study that if you have spare time. If you've always wanted to take up a different sport, if you're not a golfer and you want to take up golf, now's a good time to try and goof around in your garden. Try something new. Most importantly, and this will be the most important thing, is appreciate and enjoy what you have. You know, there's a lot of people out there that don't have or might not have a roof over their head because they're not able to work. So appreciate what you do have, even if you don't have a roof over your head. Look at the positives in your life. Look at your family. I know most of you are actually quarantined with your family if you're lucky enough to be quarantined with them. And if you are, appreciate your family. As tough as it is to be in the same house with family, it's a special time too. It's a time where you're probably not going to have as much time in the same house again with your family, and it's now a good time to really get to know each other a little bit better and to love each other a little bit more and do things together. Play board games. If you're lucky enough to be on the water, get out in the water together. Play games in the garden. Talk about what you were always afraid to talk about. Just spend quality time with your family and enjoy it. And then make the most of the situation. You know, we've got a lot of time on our hands to plan ahead for when we do recover from this. So make use of this time, the spare time, to get on top of your life, to get ahead of what you've always fallen behind in. Society is always so busy. I always find like I'm falling miles behind on everything. Because when I'm away focusing on golf, all the other stuff falls into the background. And when you get back, you have this mountain of admin to catch up on. So catch up on your admin. Be productive. If you've lost a job, think about things that you can possibly do. I mean, I'm thinking about things I can possibly do now because I don't know when we're going to get back playing in Europe, and I don't know what the economic state of the tour is going to be when we do get back. So try and plan ahead. Have short-term goals to plan. It's very easy to achieve a short-term goal. When someone sets a goal, I often see big mistakes happening when you set too high of a goal for a medium-term or short-term goal. You want to set that ultimate high goal and put it aside. and then set medium-term goals and put them aside, and then set short-term goals, and I'm talking about daily goals. Routine is one of them. Weekly goals. Say, I want to do this today, this tomorrow, etc., so that I achieve this in this week. And if you do that, it's amazing what you can actually achieve, because by doing little by little by little, you actually achieve a hell of a lot. So those are things to think about while you're at home with this crazy virus going on. And now I'd like to open the floor to any questions. So I don't know if you guys can turn everyone's mic on so they can jump in and ask any questions if they have any.
I think we have at least one, if not two here. And if anybody has any questions, there should be a box on the right side of your screen that you can type into and send them in, and we'll get to you in the order we get them. I think we have a question from Gary Webb here. Gary, I'm going to turn on your mic and let us know if you have a question for us.
Okay.
So maybe
Gary, are you there?
we'll move on. And Gary, if you're just having trouble, just shoot me a message and let me know. But we do have a question here from Jennifer Andrews.
Okay. Hey, Jennifer.
She says that the way she set up the call, she's not able to actually get her mic working, but read this whole thing to you. She said, tell us your favorite about your favorite caddy, and then forget my other questions. What I really want to share, what you really want you to share is, what is speed golf?
That's quite funny. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks for the question. Yeah. So I've had very few caddies in my life, but my favorite caddy has obviously been Katie, my wife. It was very ironic on how she did caddy for me. My caddy's water heater in his house actually burst and he couldn't make it to the golf tournament. So I got Katie to jump on the bag, and I'm sure a few of you know these questions, this story. But for those of you that don't, I'll tell it. So she caddied for me in a tournament, and we were in the Pro-Am, and she knows nothing about golf at this stage. I mean, she loves watching golf. She can actually hit the ball and do all that stuff, but she knows nothing about being a caddy. And we were in the Pro-Am, and I was doing my own yardages, and I thought, let me just see how good she is with the book. So I said to Katie, do you mind pacing off from that reference point in the fairway to my ball so to see how far I've got to the front of the green? And she said, sure, no problem, very politely. And she proceeded to walk at a diagonal from the reference point to my golf ball and said 15 yards. And instead of walking vertically down the fairway towards the target. So that was quite funny, and I knew that she wasn't going to be a caddy who's going to have the book from that point on. But ironically, we actually played that week, and ironically, I actually won the golf tournament. So it just shows that a caddy's relationship is actually really important, because if you can have someone that relaxes you on the bag, fortunately enough, my wife relaxes me. I know it's not everyone's case, but luckily she does for me, and we managed to share special moments and win a golf tournament together. So that would probably be my most memorable caddy memory that I have. On the next question, what is speed golf? Look, for those of you Abaco members that have been fortunate to spending time together with me, we are a really unique community. We're more like a family. The members, they truly are some of the best friends that I've ever made in my life, because they're all such down-to-earth, salts of the earth people. And I think it's because we've actually been through a hell of a lot at the club together. We went through a few ownerships. Members bought the club at one point, and it really united us as a membership front. And I've yet to see another community that is quite as tightly knit as we are at the Abaco Club. So when we are there together, we actually hang out a lot. We go to each other's houses, we have dinners at each other's houses. We spend a lot of time on the beach together. We play speed golf like we have with the Andrews, which basically is barefoot, swimming costume, t-shirt golf, one hole, and we use the first hole at the Aiken Club, which is a par 5. And we basically have one person hitting a drive, the next person is located where you think they're going to hit a drive, and so forth and so forth. And we have a team of 4. So the first person is going to run to where they're going to eventually hit a shot, but it's whoever can finish the hole in the quickest time with your score. So you actually multiply your score with your time, and that is speed golf. We also have the barefoot challenge, the one club challenge, the hair of the dog on New Year's. So we have a lot of fun at the Aiken Golf Club with different variations of the game of golf.